Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. No. Okay, reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 8, text 45, no? 44 it says? 54. 54. There we go. Oh, we have it again here. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mantrenanena devasya kuryadravyan mayim buddha saparyam vividhair dravyair desha kala vibhagavit. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mantrenanena devasya kuryadravyamayim buddha saparyam vividhair dravyair desha kala vibhagavit. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mantrenanena devasya kuryadravyamayim buddha saparyam vividhair dravyair desha kala vibhagavit. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mantrenanena devasya kuryadravyamayim buddha yam dravyair Deshakala vibhagavit. Word for word? Oh, sorry. Continue. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mantrena nena devasya. Kuryad mravyamayim budha. Saparyam vividar dravyar. Deshakala vibhagavit. Word for word. Om. O my Lord. Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances. Bhagavate. Unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vasudevaya. Unto the Supreme Lord. Vasudev. Mantrena. By this hymn or mantra. Anena. This. Devasya. Of the Lord. Kuryat. One should do. Dravyamayim. Physical. Buddhaha. One who is learned. Saparyam. Worship by the prescribed method. Vividai. With varieties. Dravyai. Paraphernalia. Desha. According to country. Kala. Time. Vibhagavit. One who knows the divisions. Translation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This is the 12-syllable mantra for worship of Lord Krishna. One should install the physical form of the Lord, and with the chanting of the mantra, one should offer flowers and fruits and other varieties of foodstuffs, exactly according to the rules and regulations prescribed by authorities. But this should be done in consideration of place, time, and attendant conveniences and inconveniences. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya is known as the Dvadakshara mantra. This mantra is chanted by Vaishnava devotees, and it begins with the pranava or omkara. There is an injunction that those who are not brahmanas cannot pronounce the pranava mantra. But Dhruva Maharaj was born as a Kshatriya. He at once admitted before Narada Muni that as a Kshatriya he was unable to accept Narada's instruction of renunciation and mental equilibrium, which are the concern of brahmanas. Still, although not a brahmana but a Kshatriya, Dhruva was allowed on the authority of Narada to pronounce the pranava omkara. This is a very significant. Especially in India, the caste brahmanas object greatly when persons of other castes who are not born in brahmana families recite this pranava mantra. But here is the tactic proof that if a person accepts the Vaishnava mantra or a Vaishnava way of worship, the deity, he is allowed to chant the pranava mantra. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord personally accepts that anyone, even one of low species, can be elevated to the highest position and go back home back to Godhead, simply if he worships properly. The prescribed rules, as stated here by Narada Muni, are that one should accept the mantra through a bona fide spiritual master and hear the mantra in the right ear. Not only should one chant or murmur the mantra, but in front of him he must have a deity, or physical form of the Lord. Of course, when the Lord appears, it is no longer a physical form. For example, when an iron rod is made red hot in a fire, it is no longer iron, it is fire. Similarly, when we make the form of the Lord, whether of wood or stone or metal or jewels or paint, or even the form within the mind, it is a bona fide spiritual transcendental form of the Lord. Not only must one receive the mantra from the bona fide spiritual master, like Narada Muni or his representative in the disciplic succession, but one must chant the mantra. And not only must one chant, but he should also offer whatever foodstuff is available in his part of the world, according to time and convenience. The method of worship, chanting the mantra, and preparing the form of the Lord is not stereotyped, nor is it exactly the same everywhere. It is specifically mentioned in this verse that one should take into consideration of the time and place and available conveniences. Our Krishna consciousness movement is going on throughout the entire world, and we also install deities in different centers. Sometimes our Indian friends, puffed up with concocted notions, criticize that this has not been done or that has not been done, but they forget the instructions of Narada Muni to one of the greatest Vaishnavas, Dhruva Maharaj. One has to consider the particular time, country, and convenience. What is convenient in India may not be convenient in Western countries. Those who are not actually in the line of acharyas or who have personally no knowledge of how to act in the role of acharya unnecessarily criticize the activities of ISKCON movement in countries outside of India. The fact is that such critics cannot do anything personally to spread Krishna consciousness. If someone does go and preach, taking all risks and allowing all considerations for time and place, it might be that there are some changes in the manner of worship, but that is not at all faulty according to the Sastra. Śrīmad Vira Raghava Acharya, an acharya in the disciplic succession of the Ramanuja Sampradaya, has remarked in his commentary that Chandalas, or conditioned souls who are born in lower than Sudra families, can also be initiated according to the circumstances. The formalities may be slightly changed here and there to make them Vaishnavas. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommends that his name should be heard in every nook and corner of the world. How is this possible unless one preaches everywhere? The cult of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Bhagavad Dharma, and he especially recommends Krishna Katha, or the cult of Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. He recommends that every Indian, considering this task to be the para upakara, or welfare activity, take the Lord's message to every resident of the world. Other residents of the world do not refer only to those who are exactly like Indian Brahmanas and Kshatriyas, or like the caste Brahmanas, who claim to be Brahmanas because they were born in the family of Brahmanas. The principle that only Indians and Hindus should be brought into Vaishnava cult is a mistaken idea. There should be propaganda to bring everyone to the Vaishnava cult. The Krishna consciousness movement is meant for this purpose. There is no bar to propagating the Krishna consciousness movement even among people who are born in Chandala, Malecha, or Yavana families. Even in India, this has been initiated by Srila Sanatana Goswami in his book Hari Bhakti Vilas, which is Smriti and is authorized Vedic guide for Vaishnavas in the daily behavior. Sanatana Goswami says that as bell metal can be turned into gold when mixture of mercury and chemical process, so by the bona fide diksha or initiation method, everyone can become a Vaishnava. One should take initiation from a bona fide spiritual master coming in the disciplic succession, who is authorized by his predecessor, spiritual master. This is called Diksha Vidhana. Lord Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita, Vyapashritya, one should accept a spiritual master. By this process, the entire world can be converted to the Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada ki jai. So long purport today. And the verse and purport is very much related to Sri Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya ki jai. Let's see. So today, as we know, is the appearance day of Sri Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya was a disciple of Sri Madhavendra Puri, and Madhavendra Puri is the initiating guru of Ishra Puri, who is the guru of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in a way, he is the spiritual grand uncle, you can say, of Mahaprabhu, right? There's many beautiful verses described in every single, literature given at that time, Chaitanya Bhagavad, Chaitanya Mangal, Chaitanya Charitamrita, many different places describing the tattva and who is Sri Advaita Acharya for us and who he is in the spiritual world. but because he is such an amazing personality, and because he's a confluence of so many different personalities and energies, his tattva is quite difficult to understand for us with this material intelligence and imperfect senses. And so we will describe a few of his characteristics and who he is, but then we will go into a pastime of him with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which we can more easily relish and understand with our limited intelligence. So first is from Gaura Gunadesha Deepika. The verse goes, Vraje avesha rupa tvad vyuho yopi sadashiva sa eva dvaita goswami chaitanya binna vigraha. Sadashiva, an expansion of the Supreme Lord in Vraja, is here known as Advaita Acharya. He is non-different from Lord Chaitanya. This is from Gaura Gunadesha Deepika, verse 76. Right? In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj quotes the following evidence from the diary of Swarup Damodar to describe the ontology and principles of Advaita Acharya. Mahavishnu is the master of the universe, which he creates through the power of Maya. Advaita Acharya is the incarnation of this form of the Supreme Lord. He is known as Advaita because he is none other than Hari. As Acharya because he is the preceptor of devotion. I take shelter of the Supreme Lord Advaita Acharya, who is the incarnation of a devotee. Chaitanya Charitamrita 1:12-13. Right? So here it's described that the Lord Advaita Acharya, he is Mahavishnu, but he is also Sadashiva, as mentioned in Gaura Gunadesha Deepika. So he's Sadashiva and Mahavishnu. How can we understand this? How can two personalities be in the same person? Because they're not two personalities. It's described... I don't have the quote here. I must have deleted it. It is described in Bhakti Ratnakar by Narhari Chakravarti that Lord Mahavishnu, when he incarnates into this material world, he becomes Sadashiva or he becomes Shiva, because he becomes in contact with the material energy. So it's the same person. But it's described as two different personalities because those are the two qualities of Advaita Acharya. As a devotee, he's Sadashiva, and as the Supreme Lord, as Paramahamsa, living in everyone's heart, right? He is Mahavishnu. And so therefore Advaita Acharya himself felt so much anxiety and so much pain seeing the condition of the spirit souls, because he was double suffering. As a devotee, he was suffering seeing the suffering of the jiva, and as Paramahamsa, he was within the heart of everyone seeing their suffering. So he was even more in pain. It wasn't just like a devotee feels bad or feels empathy for the conditioned souls. He's living within their heart as Mahavishnu, as Paramahamsa. And so he was seeing the suffering of every single individual jiva. And he was feeling that suffering as the fully cognizant Mahavishnu. And then as Sadashiva, he was the eternal devotee, so he wanted to bring them to Krishna consciousness. So those two personalities give Advaita Acharya, or I wouldn't say give, they are who Advaita Acharya is in that fully merciful form as Advaita Acharya. Because they're Jai Nrsimha Bhagwan Ki Jai. So because of those two natures within him, he has that supreme, ultimate, merciful nature within Advaita Acharya. So being so merciful, right? It's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita that he constantly offered water from the Ganges and Tulsi Manjaris while meditating on Krishna's lotus feet. At the same time, calling for Krishna with loud roars. This is the way that he caused Krishna to descend. This, then, is the chief reason that Krishna Chaitanya became incarnated on this earth. He who is the bridge of justice descended at the wish of his devotee. Chaitanya Charitamrita 1:3-107-9. Right? So because the loud roars and calling of Sri Advaita Acharya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he came to this world to preach pure love of God. Because of the intense desire of Advaita Acharya. Right? In Bhakti Ratnakar, it's also described that Advaita Acharya dwelt in Santipur. His body is the reservoir of devotional nectar and is not different from that of Chaitanya. Chaitanya, whose spotless fame has filled the earth, was brought down to this earth by him. My devotee is not different from Gauranga, and his wife Sita is the mother of the universe. His roars brought Gauranga into this world and then glorified him everywhere. Bhakti Ratnakar 12 to 305. Right? So beautifully is describing the nature of Advaita Acharya and he is the cause of Mahaprabhu coming to this world. There's many other places in Bhakti Rasamrita and Chaitanya Charitamrita where it describes that it was only because of Advaita Acharya that Mahaprabhu incarnated. Mahaprabhu himself says it in many different places that you brought me here, because of your calls you brought me here, and now what should I do? What is my next duty? Now let's start the Sankirtan movement. So in so many different places, he's glorifying Advaita Acharya. So we have him to be grateful for Mahaprabhu. Because of Advaita Acharya, Mahaprabhu came. And we have to be so grateful to Advaita Acharya as being the supreme devotee, or Sadashiva as being Advaita Acharya. He is the cause for our great fortune of having this Mahamantra, of having this process of Krishna consciousness, and everything else we have in our ISKCON movement. So we have to show our great gratitude and beg for his mercy, so that we can achieve the mercy of Lord Gauranga. Yeah? So today is the auspicious appearance day of Advaita Acharya, and we will be reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 3. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stays at the house of Advaita Acharya. So the chapter is actually really big, and there's many intricate details, so we'll do a little bit more of a summary. I'll go through the pastime. But it's a very, very beautiful pastime, and it very beautifully describes the nature of Advaita Acharya and his perfect example as the perfect devotee, perfect householder, and supreme being that he is. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he gives a summary of the previous following up to this pastime. So after accepting sannyas order at Katwa, Sri Mahaprabhu traveled continuously for 3 days in Radha Dish, and by the trick of Nityananda Prabhu, eventually came to the western side of Shantipur. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was induced to believe that the river Ganga was the Yamuna, and when he worshipped the sacred river, Advaita Acharya arrived on a boat. Advaita Prabhu asked him to take his bath in the Ganga and took him to Advaita's house, to his house. Yeah, so after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas, he was so eager to go to Vrindavan. He was desperate. He wanted to leave right away and leave to Vrindavan. But the different devotees, Nityananda Prabhu and different devotees, tricked him and said that this is Vrindavan, and started taking him to different places in Navadip Dham, saying this is this place, this is that place. And because the two dhams are interchanged, right, every place that's in Vrindavan is also in Mayapur, and every place that's in Mayapur is also in Vrindavan. So Mahaprabhu was enjoying so much seeing the different pastime places of Krishna and Balaram and the gopis in Mayapur. And so eventually, through the trick of Nityananda Prabhu, they took him all around Navadvip until they got to the western side of Ganga, which is near Shantipur. And then telling Mahaprabhu that this is Ganga, this is the Yamuna, Mahaprabhu started, honoring Yamuna, was about to pay obeisances and do his worship. Then Advaita Acharya came on the boat, and Mahaprabhu was a little bit surprised. He's like, Advaita, what are you doing here in Vrindavan? How did you know I was in Vrindavan? How did you know I was here? So then Advaita Prabhu explained to Mahaprabhu that you've been traveling for 3 days fasting. It's time for you to come and have some prasad. Please come to my house and please have I've made some simple dishes, some simple rice, simple vegetables, local shak, right? Shak is spinach. At that time was very common and still is in Bengal. And so he enticed Mahaprabhu to please come to his house, saying it's going to be very simple prasadam. Why was he mentioning simple? Is because Mahaprabhu just took sannyas. And Mahaprabhu was very strictly observing the rules of sannyas to only eat very simple food, to beg for his prasadam, right? Follow all the strict rules of renunciation. And so Advaita Acharya knew that if he told Mahaprabhu everything he had cooked, Mahaprabhu wouldn't come. So he said, no, very simple, right? He said, you've been traveling as a mendicant on pilgrimage. Sometimes we eat fruits and roots, and sometimes you simply go on fasting. Right? So please come, and I'll give you I've made some simple rice, simple vegetables, and like that you can have prasadam. So Mahaprabhu agreed, and him and Nityananda Prabhu and Mukunda and Haridas Thakur, they went on the boat to Advaita Acharya's house. When they got there, Then they saw that in the offering room, Advaita Acharya had cooked an immense feast. In the Bengali traditional menu, there's at least a division of 7 different types of preparations. 6, but 7 main distinctions. And those distinctions are made according to the 7 or 6 tastes described in Ayurveda, right? You have sweet, sour, salty, pungent, bitter, and astringent. Those are the 6 tastes that are described. And so those 6 tastes are separated into a menu of 6 different types or genres of food. So you start with the bitter or the astringent, depending if you have that in your menu. Then you move on to the pungent. Then you move on to the salty. Then you move on to the spicy, right? The spicy, you have the curries, the rich sabjis. Then you have the sour, the chutneys, and at the end you have the sweet. So this distinction in Bengali menu, in traditional Bengali menu, is very predominant, even to this day. You go to someone's house and they'll serve you in that order. They'll serve you, depends on the size of the feast, there might be 1 or 2 of each type. So in the beginning, the astringent will be like an appetizer, something to wake up the appetite. Sometimes there's, in this place is described that Advaita Acharya made something called Manika Kushmanda. This is also described by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Bhaja Bhakata Vatsala Shri Gaura Hari song. Right, so this is made from the root of one vegetable called mankochu. And they grate it and they cook it with a lot of mustard oil. It's spicy and astringent. And when you eat it, usually they serve you a little bit like this. And immediately you get really hungry because it really wakes everything up and it prepares your taste buds and everything. So, but Advaita Acharya was such a professional cook he was that he made a minimum of 6 to 10 of each genre. So there were 6 astringent, there was 6 shuktas, there was more than 10 shak preparations, spinach preparations. The fried boris, the salty preparations like pakoras, samosas, right? Those are called the salty preparations. They're eaten with dal. There was many, it's described around 20 different types, right? And then when it came to dals, there was at least 4 different types of dals. Then the main sabjis, the paneer sabjis, right? There's many, it's described he made with eggplant, he made with many different ones, right? There was so many different preparations there. That wasn't even getting to the sweets. Then he had at least different types of chutney. He had amla, he had green mango chutney, he had this other chutney, what's it called? Amla and amra are 2 different fruits, right? So many different chutneys he had for Mahaprabhu. And then sweets, he had a whole other description. There's a whole 10 different types of sweets he had for Mahaprabhu. So you can imagine the scene was like a whole, hallway full of pots and plates covered in different piles of different food, right? Of different prasad that Advaita Acharya made for Mahaprabhu. These also are analyzed into 4 different sections, right? In our Guru Rastakam every morning, we sing Chaturvidashi Bhagavad Prasada, right? 4 different types of prasadam that the Guru offers, with that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. So unless these 4 types of prasadam are there, it's considered an incomplete offering to the Lord. So the licked preparations are all those syrups, right? Chutney and different things like that. Then you have the chewed, which is the main majority. Pakora, samosas, sabjis, rice, it's all chewed, right? Then drunk is the different drinks. Always some drinks are offered to the Lord. And then suck, there's many different vegetables and also like amla. This, I don't know how to say amla in English. Huh? Yeah, right? Those ones, when you cook it, it's still, the fiber is still there. So you need to chew and suck to get the proper sourness and sweetness out of the fruit. There's also datta, there's drumsticks, very common in India. That's also sucked. So there's many different preparations which encompass all these 4 different ways of eating and the 6 flavors. So Advaita Acharya ensured that in the menu that he offered, everything was there. Yeah? So when Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu saw this immense offering, Mahaprabhu was immediately like, no, I'm a sannyasi, how can I eat this? Just give me a small handful of rice and that'll be it, Advaita Acharya immediately said, give up this false act of renunciation that you're showing, because in Puri right now, you're eating, how many times a day in Mahaprabhu? In Puri they eat something like 24 offerings a day, right? So it says 24 times a day you're eating in Puri, many millions of pots of boga, and here you're complaining about the small feast. Okay, calm down. You don't need to act in front of me, he's telling Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu is saying it so much, but at the same time Nityananda Prabhu is saying, what is this? This is so little. He's saying, I've been fasting for 3 days. I was hoping to be able to break my fast today, but this isn't even one morsel, he's saying. So like this, Nityananda Prabhu is saying it's too little, Mahaprabhu is saying too much. So finally, Advaita Acharya convinces them both, sit down, we'll start eating. And so they start eating, and Mahaprabhu, he's eating half of whatever the preparation, like there's a small pot of some preparation, he'll eat half, and then immediately Advaita Acharya will refill it. He'll eat half, and Advaita Acharya will refill it. And so Mahaprabhu says, how much can I eat? I have to, it's too much. And Advaita says, no, look, there's so little there. Just eat half and leave the other half. But as soon as he would eat half, Advaita Acharya would fill the other half back up. So it looked like he didn't eat anything. So Mahaprabhu was constantly going in circles, eating everything, and at the same time Advaita Acharya is refilling everything, non-stop. So then finally, Nityananda Prabhu is saying that, this is so little, you need to serve me more, this is not enough. And Advaita Acharya, joking with Nityananda Prabhu, he says that you aren't a sannyasi, you're not a Paramahamsa, you're a reject. And so basically, you shouldn't be complaining too much. You should simply accept whatever I give you, a small handful of rice, and you should go. You should get up and go. And so Nityananda Prabhu says, whatever you call me, whatever I am an invite. You invited me to your house. You have to feed me until I'm satisfied. Don't give all this nonsense trying to judge who I am. Right? And then Advaita Acharya says, but I know you, and you would be able to eat 24 annas, 24 manas. One mon is 24 kilos. So he was able to eat 24 times 24 kilos of rice, which is just, right? He said, I know you, and you who you are, you would be able to eat that much rice. I'm a poor Brahmana. How can I feed you that much? Right? And Nityananda Prabhu, he's arguing with Advaita Acharya. He says, you're making excuses. You're a householder. Now you're how do you say? Like when you give someone something and you're trying to take it back, right? So you invited me, and now you're trying to say, no, there's not enough. Please stop eating. And so like that, they're arguing. At the same time, Advaita Acharya is constantly serving, so Mahaprabhu is having a really good laugh at this discussion between Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Acharya. It's a very loving discussion between them. There's many purports on the different things that Advaita Acharya is telling Nityananda Prabhu, and Nityananda Prabhu is telling Advaita Acharya. Because of their nature, Nityananda Prabhu being Balaram, being Sankarshan, and Advaita Acharya being Sadashiva and Mahavishnu, when they talk, they're on a whole other level. Right? So at one point, Nityananda Prabhu getting irritated with Advaita Acharya, he took a handful of rice and threw it at Advaita Acharya. And he says, you are not treating me correctly as a guest. And Advaita Acharya started dancing in ecstasy. As soon as the rice touched his body, he said, you're a madman. He told Nityananda Prabhu, you're a madman. And by throwing this rice on me, you're not considering any of my caste or consciousness, because Advaita Acharya, according to caste, was higher than Nityananda Prabhu. He said, you have also made me a madman. Now I've become a complete crazy person. You have destroyed my Brahmin regulations and everything. And Prabhupada gives a very beautiful purport. He's describing that Nityananda Prabhu is an avadut, right? He's out of this world. Sometimes he dressed as a sannyasi, sometimes as a householder, sometimes as a king, right? He had no rules and regulations in the way he would behave or act. He would simply give love of God to everyone and everyone. So when Advaita Acharya is saying that you have destroyed my Brahmin regulations and Smriti, and this, Advaita Acharya was telling that by the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu, one can break through this caste consciousness and this idea of rules and regulations, and that's what's going to give me Krishna. That's what's going to give me Krishna Prem. Only pure love of God, only love of God and pure devotion to the Lord can give you Krishna Prem, right? Everything else may be utilized, but by the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu, one can pass past all of that. So Advaita Acharya is glorifying Nityananda Prabhu in this very interesting conversation between the two of them. Right. At the end, after Mahaprabhu had eaten enough and said no more, Advaita Acharya got them to, both of them wash their hands and sit down in a very comfortable place to take their nap. And him, Haridas Thakur, and Mukunda Das, they sat down and had this sumptuous feast of the remnants of Mahaprabhu. Right? There's many other stories that can illustrate the importance of this pastime and the importance of prasad in this way. And one of the things that is described is that there's a story that a plate of Mahaprasad that was offered to the deity in the temple, in one of the temples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, had somehow been approached by a dog and sniffed, when they touched their nose to the prasadam. The devotees got the dog away, but then they were concerned, what are we going to do with this plate of prasadam, right? This plate of prasadam has been touched by a dog. Should we eat it? Should we throw it? Should we bury it? Put it in Ganga? They had no idea what to do. Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur came and he took that prasad and ate it. He honored it. He considered it non-different. And so we should understand by this pastime of Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur the importance of prasad, and we should be very careful not to consider something contaminated due to our material idea. Right? In Puri also there's some of my teachers, they go to Puri sometime and they told me the pastime that they went there and the panda saw them and took them and sat them down, gave them prasadam. And at one point, the wife of my teacher, she couldn't continue eating. She was full. She couldn't. She still had a mountain because they just kept serving like Advaita Acharya did. And when the panda saw that she couldn't finish eating her prasadam, he said, okay, get up, and just sat someone else down. He says, you want prasadam? Come sit down. And just they continue, like the next person came, sat down, and continued eating from the same plate without a question, without a comment, without a face, without anything. There was no consideration that this is someone's leftovers. No, this is prasadam. Right? He said, you finished? You're done? Okay, sit down. That was it. And just continued eating from the same plate. In Puri, they're very, very strict about their consciousness and understanding of Krishna Prasad. And so from this pastime, and in so many other pastimes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we can understand the importance of cooking for the Lord, offering the Lord prasad or boga, and receiving his Mahaprasadam, and understanding that is pure mercy, right? One of the songs that sometimes we don't really take into consideration is our prasadam song, right? The one we sing before chanting prasadam, right? We'll read the translation, and then there's a second song that many of us don't know. We'll also read. So the first one, right? We have the Sarida Abhijajal, that song. It says, "Oh brothers, this material body is a network of ignorance, and the senses are one of the deadly enemies. For they throw the soul into an ocean of material sense enjoyment. Among these senses, the most ferocious and uncontrollable and very difficult to conquer is the tongue in this world. O brothers, Lord Krishna is very merciful, and he has given us his remnants just to control the tongue. Now please accept this nectarian Krishna Prasad and sing the glories of their lordships, Sri Sri Radha and Krishna, and lovingly call out Chaitanya Nitai." Right? So this song is from Gitavali by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And there's a second song, which many of us don't know, which is supposed to be sung while eating prasadam, right? It says part 2. So it says, "Bhaire ekadina shantipure prabhura dvaita gore dui prabhu bhojana boshilo shakori ashwadana prabhu bole bhakta gana ei shak Krishna ashwadilo heno shak ashwadhane Krishna prema aishi mane se prema koro ashwadhana jada bhudi parihari prabhu prasad bhajana kori hari hari bole sarvajana." So this song is supposed to be sung while prasadam. And it says, "Oh brothers, one day at Shantipur, in Sri Advaita's house, Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda were seated for lunch. When Lord Chaitanya tasted the green leafy vegetables, shak, he said, my devotees, this shak is so delicious. Lord Krishna has definitely tasted it. At the taste of shak as this, love of Krishna arises in the heart. In such love, you should taste this prasad. Giving up all materialistic conceptions and taking the Lord's prasadam, all of you should just chant, Hari Hari. Shri Advaita Acharya ki jai." So here, the song, right, it's describing another pastime, well, the same pastime in Advaita Acharya's house. And it's something we should think about when we're honoring prasadam. So by understanding this and by looking at all the other pastimes in Chaitanya Charitamrita where prasadam is very, how would I say, detailed, described every preparation, what was made, how it was made, what was used to make it, how Mahaprabhu ate it, how the devotees ate it. It's just chapter after chapter describing cooking, offering, and honoring prasadam. So we can understand the importance, and we should take it very seriously. And when we honor prasadam, take it very seriously. When we serve prasadam, take it very seriously. And when we cook for the Lord, take it very seriously. And that way, we can control the tongue, which as described is one of the most difficult enemies of controlling the senses, and in that way be able to progress in Krishna consciousness. Yeah, so let us all pray to Advaita Acharya to please give us his blessings so that we may achieve the mercy of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, and on this day receive a little bit of his mercy and go back to Godhead. Yes? Shri Advaita Acharya ki jai. Is there any questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. I must tell you, you're a very cruel person.
Is half-day fasting?
How can you do that? But you have one chance to make it better. Tell us who's cooking lunch today.
Yeah, I'm cooking lunch today.
Haribo!
But it won't be as good. It won't be anywhere near as good.
I'm sure it will. Yeah, thank you for this wonderful... Huh? Ja, wenn es nicht zu laut ist, dass den Leuten hier die Ohren abfallen. Is it true that Mahaprabhu once was beating up Advaita Acharya?
Yes, Prabhu. So, Ramananda Prabhu is very kindly asking us to talk about another pastime of Advaita Acharya. So when Advaita Acharya finally got the darshan of Mahaprabhu and realized that Mahaprabhu came to this earth, he and many other Vaishnavas of that time were so eagerly waiting for Mahaprabhu to start his Sankirtan preaching, right? His Sankirtan movement. But Mahaprabhu was so focused in his studies of grammar, Nyaya, Shastra, that he didn't exhibit that part of his mood yet, right? He didn't start his preaching yet. And so Advaita Acharya, they wouldn't associate with Mahaprabhu so much because whenever they would go near Mahaprabhu, Mahaprabhu would just talk about Shastra, talk about Nyaya, means logic. He would talk about grammar. He would start arguing with them, defeating them in Nyaya and Shastra, even defeating their Krishna conscious philosophy because Mahaprabhu was so expert, right? So they would avoid Mahaprabhu, right? Whenever they would see Mahaprabhu as Nimai Pandit, who he was at that time, they wouldn't associate with him because they didn't want to talk about materialistic subjects. And Mahaprabhu, in his mood, joyful mood at that time, he would just engage in those things to have some fun. And so finally, when when Mahaprabhu decided to start his Sankirtan movement after taking initiation from Ishwara Puri, he sat on the throne or the altar at that time, and he basically told, go and bring Advaita here. Go find Advaita and tell him that I have finally come, because of his prayers, I have come to spread love of God. Now we should do it, we should start, and please bring him here, right? So they went and brought Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya was overjoyed. There's a whole pastime how he wanted to test Mahaprabhu even more. He hid in the house of Nandana Acharya's house. And he said that I will only believe that Mahaprabhu is who he is if he knows exactly where I am. So Mahaprabhu told the devotees, go to Nandana Acharya's house and bring Advaita here. He's hiding there trying to test me. Right? So they brought Advaita Acharya. But still Mahaprabhu wasn't starting his open preaching of the Sankirtan movement. So Advaita Acharya, becoming impatient, he wanted to show Mahaprabhu's mood, and he wanted to basically entice Mahaprabhu to start it. Enough with this playing around and waiting. We have to start now. So he went back to Shantipur and he started preaching this Mayavadi philosophy, right? He started preaching very, very ferociously and with great conviction. He started preaching Mayavad philosophy, saying how we don't need to, even though we worship the Lord, Krishna, and all these different personalities, we are non-different, we are God, right? He started very fervently preaching this philosophy. And Mahaprabhu, when he came to hear about that, he became very, very angry, right? And so he, taking Nityananda Prabhu and other associates, he went to Shantipur. And when Advaita Acharya heard that Mahaprabhu was coming, right, he started preaching even more strong, right? He bringing more disciples and turning more people into the Mayavad philosophy. And so when Mahaprabhu was in earshot, Advaita Acharya was just screaming into the assembly that Krishna is not God, he's just an impersonal feature of God, he's just an expansion of the light, Brahman, etc., going into all his details. And Mahaprabhu went on to the Vyasa-san, grabbed Advaita Acharya, threw him on the floor and started beating him, slapping him, beating him, slapping him. He says, you brought me to this world to preach love of God and you are teaching this nonsense. How can you do this? And just going on and on and on beating Advaita Acharya. And Advaita Acharya is laughing in so much happiness and ecstasy. Because finally Mahaprabhu is going to start the movement. You know, he's been waiting so long, he just got impatient. So to trick Mahaprabhu, he performed this pastime. And at the same time, Sita Thakurani, the wife of Advaita Acharya, is saying, he's so old, don't beat him, you know, have some mercy. You know that he doesn't mean it, he was just making fun of you, etc. going on. And Mahaprabhu is very relishing this mood, this pastime, but at the same time in great anger, or exhibiting great anger against this Mayavad philosophy. He was beating Advaita Acharya, right? Until Advaita Acharya relented, begged for Mahaprabhu's mercy, and then the Sankirtan movement officially started from that point. There's another pastime in this connection also, that Advaita Acharya, he was getting so impatient that Mahaprabhu wasn't showing this Mahaprakash Leela, showing this exhibition of his supremacy and as the Supreme Lord, that he decided that he gathered a big group of devotees and he said, today we won't sing Krishna's names, we'll sing Mahaprabhu's names because he's non-different. So they went on a huge Harinam just singing Mahaprabhu's names, Gaura Hari, Jai Gauranga, Gauranga, and just the whole Nadia was chanting Gauranga Mahaprabhu's names. And Mahaprabhu was asking, why are you doing this, you know? And so Advaita Acharya would tell Mahaprabhu that, you know, everyone can be delivered simply by hearing your name. Only if they chant Krishna's name and they worship him, then like that. But simply by hearing Mahaprabhu's name, because he's more merciful than Krishna, they'll get delivered even faster. So why take these side routes? Let's go straight, the easiest way. So chant Mahaprabhu's name. So there's many ways in which we can understand Advaita Acharya's eagerness. He brought the Lord here, and he was so eager for the Lord to start his Sankirtan movement, so eager for the Lord to finally take up the chanting of the holy name and spread it freely everywhere. So he had to entice the Lord, and that's why he performed the pastime, as Raghunanda Prabhu hinted, that he was preaching this Mayavad philosophy to get Mahaprabhu to become angry and to start the preaching. So it's a very beautiful pastime. Thank you, Raghunanda Prabhu, for suggesting it.
Another feature in this pastime is that actually Mahaprabhu, he always treated Advaita Acharya as a superior because he saw him as his, how to say, Param Guru, like
yes, Parama Guru.
So, and then finally Mahaprabhu gave him his mercy, what he wanted.
Yeah.
Is it true that there was a very tense relationship between Advaita Acharya and Sita, the mother of Mahaprabhu, no?
Sachimata. That pastime I'm not so familiar with, that relationship. There's different reasons for that. One of the reasons is that Mahaprabhu's elder brother, Vishrup, right? Mahaprabhu had one elder brother, Vishrup, who was quite elder to him in age. He would always go to Advaita Acharya's house, and in the assembly of Vaishnavas, there would be in non-stop discussions about the Lord, about his pastimes. And so because of this, Vishrup was becoming more and more, well, according to Sachimata, was becoming more and more disinterested in material life and disinterested with, the material progress, studies in that way. He was only interested in devotional service. And so at one point, Vishrup, he decided to leave home and take sannyas, right? So he ran away from home. And so Sachimata blamed Advaita Acharya, said it's because of your preaching and your association that my son left home. So because of that, she told Mahaprabhu that you're not allowed to go to Advaita Acharya's house, you're not allowed to associate with them, you're not allowed to go to school, you'll stay at home, right? And there's a whole pastime of how Mahaprabhu finally convinced Sachimata that, she can't do that. I need to go to school, I need to learn, I need to be educated, right? And so in that way, she finally gave up her anger, but she still held it against Advaita Acharya that Vishrup left home because of Advaita Acharya's association and preaching. Yes, Prabhu.
It came all out. Yeah, she held this crutch because she said, Advaita, he's actually not Advaita, he's Dvaita, because he speaks duplicity,
yeah,
right? Because he convinces my Vishwarup to leave home. And Mahaprabhu knew that she has something against Advaita Acharya. And in the Mahaprakash Leela, when it came all out, everybody said, now you gave mercy to everybody, but you didn't give mercy to Mother Sachi.
Mm-hmm.
You know that pastime?
Not in such detail, Prabhu. Please continue.
And then they said, give mercy to Mother Sachi. And Mahaprabhu said, no. She will not get mercy because she is an offender. He said, what do you mean she is an offender? She is your mother. He said, no. She is an offender of Advaita Acharya. And so they thought, oh, what should we do now? Like Mother Sachi should, they went to Advaita Acharya and said, please forgive Mother Sachi because she will not get any mercy from Mahaprabhu. And Advaita Acharya said, what should we do? And Mahaprabhu said, well, she has to be humble enough to take the dust of your lotus feet, to get the dust of your lotus feet. And Advaita said, she's the mother of the universe, how I can give her my dust? And now I have a hole there. They made Advaita Acharya faint. Advaita Acharya faint and fall to the ground. I forgot the reason why he fainted. And
I
then
thought that was a different pastime.
No.
Must be again.
And then they brought Mother Sachi and said, now go and take the dust of his lotus feet. And when because he was laying on the floor, so she took the dust from his lotus feet, and then she got the mercy of Advaita Acharya.
Jai.
Yeah.
Jai. What a beautiful pastime. Thank you. Any other pastimes? Yes, Father.
So we have a question online from Shireen Nataji. I was not here the whole lecture, so I don't know what was she referring to. If it's relevant to what you spoke about. So the question is, why did Nityananda Prabhu lie to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to lead him to believe that he was in Vrindavan? Wouldn't that be considered a sin when you lie specially to such elevated souls?
Yes. Okay. So it's not a lie because, as we hear in many descriptions and glorifications of the Dhams, they're non-different. It's because of our understanding that we see the duality, we see the difference between the different pastime places of the Lord. But Mayapur, Navadvip Dham, and Vrindavan are non-different. And we see this because those pastime places are present in Mayapur, right? There's actually, in old maps of Bhaktivinoda Thakur in different places, there's actually mapped out exactly where Radhakund, Shyamakund, and those places have been renovated. They're there, right? Giri Govardhan, Ramanreti, where Varshana is, where Nandagram is, where every place that's in Braj is present in Mayapur eternally, and every place that's in Mayapur is present in Braj eternally. And so in that way, Nityananda Prabhu did not lie to Mahaprabhu, if you want to take it simply truth way. But the reason why Nityananda Prabhu did this is that if Mahaprabhu at that time immediately went to Vrindavan, the order of his pastimes wouldn't have been as they were supposed to be. Mahaprabhu was first supposed to spread love of God in Navadvip, and then he would go to Puri, and after Puri he would go to Vrindavan. So there was an order, and actually right after he took initiation, long before he took sannyas, Mahaprabhu already had a great desire to go immediately to Madhuvan, right, to Braj, and there stay eternally and perform his bhajan. But there was Akashdvani, right, there was a prophecy he heard, right, saying that it's not time yet. In the future, you'll be able to go there and relish the nectar of Brajdam, but for right now, you have to go back to Navadvip. And so, because of Mahaprabhu's ecstasy, if he was allowed to go, he would have just gone right away. But it was the duty of his associates and Nityananda Prabhu in this pastime to keep him in Navadvip, and so that then the pastimes could happen in the proper order. Because if he went to Vrindavan at that time, he would never have come back and never have spread love of God in Navadvip Dham. Because he stayed there for some time, he spread love of God in Navadvip, and then when he went to Puri, I don't think he came back again. And then from there he went to Vrindavan, and so the order had to be in a particular way. And Nityananda Prabhu didn't lie, because every word that's in Braj is in Navadvip, and everything that's in Navadvip is in Braj. So he would take him to Radhakund. This is Radhakund, this is Shyamakund. And they are. It is Radhakund, it is Shyamakund. And actually Advaita Acharya, he mentions, right, when Mahaprabhu, he says, Nityananda, how did you trick me? Advaita Acharya said, no, he didn't trick you. This half of the Ganga is Yamuna, this is Jalangi. Jalangi is non-different from Yamuna. So when the Jalangi meets Ganga, on this side, on the left-hand side of the Ganga, it's considered to be Yamuna, all the way past Shantipur into Kalkara. And the right-hand side is considered to be Ganga. There's actually a spot right after they meet, like 10 kilometers down, it's Panchaveni. That's where the 5 holy rivers are eternally there worshipping Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it's the most holy place in the universe is described. If you're thinking about like tirthas, Panchaveni is considered the most holy place, because nowhere else you have Prayag, you have three confluence, Trivenis, but Panchaveni is not there, only in Navadvip Dham. So you can go take bath there and you get all 5 at once. And because they're in the mood of serving Mahaprabhu, they're much more merciful than in their eternal place, right? There's another pastime in this connection, that there was a Brahmana, I forgot his name. He was an elder Brahmana, and he wanted to go to Brahmaputra, to the lake Brahmaputra to take bath and to purify his sins. And he was living in Navadvip Dham. So he was going from his house in the morning before he started his pilgrimage to take bath in the pond where he took bath every day. And when he was taking bath, he saw on the other side of the lake this beautiful young man taking bath. And he was completely dark. He was black in color. But he went into the lake and he came out effulgent in gold, right? And so seeing this person, the Brahmana went up to him and said, who are you? You know, I've never seen you before. You don't look like you're from this world. And he said, I am the personification of Brahmaputra, right? And every day millions of people come and put their sins into my waters, and so I'm covered in sins. And I come to this place to purify myself so I can go back to my place and again suffer all these people putting their sins in my waters. So Brahmaputra would come to this lake to purify himself, and this Brahmana wanted to go to Brahmaputra to purify himself. So he understood that everything is in the Dham. You don't need to go anywhere else. So not only Braj, but all the holy places in the universe are present in the Dham. There's no need to go anywhere else.
Yes, sir. You mentioned at the beginning, is it on? You mentioned at the beginning how Advaita Acharya is both Mahavishnu and Sankarshan, and how Mahavishnu is present in everyone's heart, and that's why Advaita Acharya could feel the suffering. So I'm just thinking, this thought comes to my mind sometimes. Of course, if we pray to Advaita Acharya, he will reciprocate, or he will hear our prayer, better said, just due to him being in our hearts. But again, sometimes we pray for Nrsingadev and we don't have to speak out loud, or we pray for Prabhupada or for the Guru, because the principle of Chaitya Guru is already present inside. So I don't have like a clear understanding, or is there actually a difference philosophically or tattvically in the tattva, how when we are praying to these personalities or divinities, should we approach them differently?
You're saying different for different personalities, or you mean not just in the mind?
Yeah, for different personalities, we always do it in the mind. It's not like we write a letter to Prabhupada and put it in front of him. Sometimes we do, it's nice, but oftentimes, most of the time, we don't do it. Or when we chant the Guru Astaka, for example, we know that the Guru is hearing us.
Yeah.
But is it like everybody is hearing us just due to the presence of the super soul?
There's many different ways to understand this, right? And the basic principle is that the sincerity in which the mind is present in your offering, right? So if you're at the stage of purification in which you can simply think of your prayer and the sincerity, the focus is there, then of course that effect will be there. But if it's just, I'm too lazy to actually say it, so I'm just going to kind of think it, and it's going to be a kind of an offering, to that extent, the Lord will hear you, right? But yes, the Lord is Paramama, he's eternally there, and so he sees the sincerity in which you're offering, so you cannot cheat him in that way, right? But for example, Guru Vastakam, we're chanting Guru Vastakam, but how much are we conscious of the meaning of Guru Vastakam? How much are we actually praying to the Guru? Are we just focused on the words? Are we just focused on the sound? Are we focused on the rhythm, right? The mridanga, the kartals? Are we focused, oh, this devotee, his voice is cracking, it's not sounding so nice. So the prayers are there as a medium in which we're expressing our devotion to the Lord, and we're taking the mercy of the previous acharyas who have written these beautiful songs to basically piggyback on their devotion, and that way make sure that our devotion is coming in the right way, in the proper way, right? The songs are there, so it's not our speculation. No, this is given by a bona fide acharya, and so therefore we are offering it in the proper way and form. Right? Because we decide that today I want to say this to the Lord doesn't mean that we just can say that without everything else. Does that make sense? There's a particular way in which we have to offer our prayers. And Prabhupada, actually in a purport, I think recently we were reading, he was talking about how there's so many prayers already given by the Vaishnava Acharyas, and so there's not a need for us to invent new ones. Right? We use these. And then additional to that, we can offer our prayers. But it's addition. It's not instead of. Right? Offering prayers to the Lord is something so important, and we should, but it's done in addition, following in their footsteps, in their way, in the proper way. We see through their example the mood in which it should be offered, the words which should be offered, the way, the descriptions that should be offered. And then in that way, whatever we do is according to Sastra, Guru Sadhu Shastra. And if we just invent our own ways and own descriptions and like that, it may or may not be bona fide, and therefore we're risking. That makes some sense? Pretty much, yeah. Yes, it's on your sincerity. If you feel that you're able to offer more of your heart by writing something down, putting thought into it, that's more of your heart, then that will be more beneficial for you, right? How much effort are you putting in? Are you just standing and then, okay, today I think I'm going to think about this, right? It's not so much effort went into it, not so much love, not so much sincerity. But if you actually have a prayer that you really want, you're thinking about, pondering, right? Then that will be with much more sincerity. So, yeah, it's very important. And then in that connection also, there's a lot of times devotees give the example that you're standing there in front of the Lord begging for His mercy, and then someone taps you on the shoulder, Prabhu, can you come wash pots? And you're like, no, I'm praying for His mercy. The Lord is giving you mercy in the form of service. Go and do the service. That's His mercy. He's showing you. But no, I need to offer my prayers. No. So, the meaning of the Maha Mantra is, my Lord, please engage me in your devotional service. So when you get engaged in devotional service, you should see it as the goal of your chanting, not a disturbance to your chanting, if that makes sense. But it's all about the sincerity, Prabhu. Sanjay Prabhu had a question.
Mm-hmm. Follow-up question on that. So, in one sense, we say Vishnu, Nrsingadev, and for that sake, then also Advaita Acharya. In one sense, they're the same person. And so, like when we offer prayers, are we always addressing the same person, or are we addressing different people? Because you could say in your heart, there's one God, isn't it?
Yes, but he has different moods in which he comes in. And different moods are what differentiate the different devotees. For example, Hanuman. Right? Hanuman is considered one of the greatest devotees of the Lord. Right? Does it say only Ramachandra? No. He's the greatest devotee of the Lord. One of the greatest devotees of the Lord. But he is not able to relate to Krishna in his form as Krishna because that's not the mood. Understand? In Bhāgavatam, right, when Narada Muni is going to the different personalities and he goes to Hanuman, Hanuman is glorifying the Pandavas, right? And so he's going into great detail and there's so much ecstasy. And then Narada Muni is saying, Hanuman, let's go now to Dwarka, let's go now to see the Pandavas. And Hanuman says, I can't because I cannot see my Lord. If I go see Krishna, it will bring more intense separation from Ramachandra. Right? By seeing the Lord in this pastime, all it will do is make me miss Ramachandra even more. So I can't do it. right? In his form as Murari Gupta, Hanuman was the same thing. Mahaprabhu was telling Murari Gupta, why are you worshipping Ramachandra? He's not as merciful as Krishna. Look at this evidence, in this pastime, in that pastime. Ramachandra sent Sita away because one night he spent with another man, right? Oh, not one night, means he spent in Lanka, or she was living in someone else's house. But Krishna, he kidnapped 16,000 princesses who were kidnapped by another Rakshasa and living for many months in his palace. Right, he went there, killed the demon, and took all 16,000 and married them all and had made them all palaces. Right? So many different evidences Mahaprabhu was giving Murari Gupta and telling him that you have to give up your attachment to Ram and worship Krishna. This is an inferior love, an inferior Lord you're worshipping like that. And what did Murari Gupta Prabhu do? He was going to give up his life. He said, I cannot give up my love for Ram. So the Acharyas expressed that Hanuman is the epitome of loyalty and integrity in one's devotion. That is the mood in which you're relating to the Lord. And so yes, the Lord is non-different, but his relationship with devotees in different pastimes, he comes for a particular mood and rasa. And so whatever mood that you have for the Lord, then you will worship that Lord. And there's nothing wrong, it's perfect and more perfect. Right? If you identify more with the Lord in the form of Nrsimhadev and you find more relationship with him by worshiping him, yes, of course, but that doesn't mean that we can just I worship Nrsimhadev, I worship Krishna, it's all the same, it's all equal. Because the Lord comes in different moods, for different pastimes. And so yes, they're all beautiful and they're all amazing, but we have our particular desire that we want to serve the Lord in. Does that answer your question a bit, Prabhu? Yeah? No? Yes? Okay. Yes. The distinction is not in the Lord. The distinction is in our relationship to the Lord. Right? The distinction is not his. The distinction is ours because of his relationship, because of his mood. Yeah? Prabhupada also sometimes gives the expression that the Lord comes in different forms to exhibit different types of pastimes. It's just like a personality has a different mood and identity in different places. So in the office you have one identity, at home you have a different identity, in the playground with your son you have a different identity. I think he describes that one very important, I think Prabhupada writes, I don't remember where, but one very important person came to see the Prime Minister. And they said, no, you can't go to meet the Prime Minister, he's in a very important meeting. And I said, no, but yesterday? Srila Prabhupada? Kila Prabhu. This past time, right? So he said, you can't go meet him, he's a very important meeting, he's very busy, you can't see him now. And so the person was so urgent, he opened the door a little bit and he saw that the Prime Minister had his grandson on his back, and the grandson was riding him like a horsey. Move, let's go, riding the Prime Minister like a horsey. And the Prime Minister, very great joy, he's dancing around, walking around the room as a horsey for the grandson. So how can we, the person was in shock, right? He's the almighty Prime Minister, but he's the horsey of the grandson. And the Prime Minister is enjoying that way more than he's enjoying in the office, giving his, laws and whatever else he has to do. So in the mood in which a devotee has to the Lord, he sees the Lord in that form, in that place, and it's perfect, right? But the Lord has different pastimes because he wants to interact with different kinds of devotees. That makes sense?
We should get everybody microphone. My wife and myself, we are the supreme personality of parents, but our children know exactly whom they should approach for what.
At what time?
At what time as well, yeah. So sometimes we looking for shelter, then we go to the Nrsimhadev, some kind of protection or whatever. We're looking for mercy, then we go to Mahaprabhu because we did something naughty or something like that. So the devotee also able to distinguish between which mood I'm approaching, or which mood of the Lord I'm approaching, for what reason.
For what reason, yeah. Yeah, very important point. Yeah, it's like in the pastime of Hanuman, he hears pastimes of Krishna, and he's describing pastimes of Krishna, and he's getting so much joy out of it for Ramachandra. It simply increases his bhakti for Ramachandra, hearing the pastimes of Krishna, hearing the pastimes of Nrsimhadev, hearing the pastimes of other personalities, because they're all his same Lord. But his devotion stays for Ramachandra, because that's his life and soul. So the Lord comes in many different moods, and for our different desires, Prabhupada introduced, of course, Nrsimhadev for our protection, right? For our protection from our mind, from our anarthas, and from other things that will hinder our devotional service to Krishna. Does that make sense, Prabhu? Yes, the microphone.
In India, we have clearly Vaishnavas and also Shaivites. So, in our scriptures, is it mentioned that can a Shaivite become a Vaishnava and other way around?
Of course, a Shaivite can become a Vaishnava, because if he understands that Lord Shiva is the greatest devotee, right? Shiva is not the supreme Lord, so it's not that that you can interchange them in that way. Right? He's the greatest devotee. So when a Shaivite comes to the understanding that Shiva is the greatest devotee of Krishna, and so therefore worships Shiva as a devotee and gets that bhakti from Shiva, right? He's called Bhaktinath, right? Muktinath is one of his names, but Bhaktinath is the superior name, because he gives bhakti, he gives pure love of God. And the Vaishnava is not interested in mukti, right? He's not interested in liberation. So when the Shaivite comes to the realization that Shiva is a devotee, and therefore he should surrender to Shiva as a devotee and worship the Lord of Shiva, which is Krishna, then yeah, for sure, there's no hindrance, as Prabhupada says, that anyone can become a Vaishnava. If Yavanas and Malechas can become Vaishnavas, of course. But a Vaishnava would have no reason to become a Shaivite, because he already understands that Shiva is a supreme devotee. And we worship Shiva, right? We worship Shiva as a devotee. Right? Shivaratri in Mayapur is a huge festival. We do a huge festival. It's an all-day kirtan, but we don't chant Shiva's holy names. We chant Krishna's holy names for Shiva, because he knows he'll be more happy. Right? It's kind of like the analogy is given that if you give a present to the father will be okay. But if you give a present to his son, the father will be more happy, because it's someone that he loves dearly. So when Shiva hears his own name be chanting, he's like, okay, But when he hears Krishna's name be chanted, he's much more happy. So to please Shiva even more, we worship Krishna, because he's a devotee and he will give us the devotion to worship Krishna with more enthusiasm. So there would be no reason for a Vaishnava to become a Shaivite, because he already worships Shiva, he already understands he's a devotee. Right? But a Shaivite can become a Vaishnava because he understands that Shiva is a devotee, and therefore he should worship the master of his master. Make sense?
Yeah, thank you. Hearing you, I can just share a personal experience. In Munich, we have a Shivalayam temple, and there last year we did Pran Pratishtha of Lord Jagannath. And on the day of Ratha Yatra, after the whole Ratha Yatra was done, Prasad Sevan was done, everything in the evening, and the Sandhya Prasad that we offer, for that I had prepared Prasad for Lord Shiva, and then it so happened that the Pujari, he didn't take the Prasad to Shiva, but he then unknowingly took it to Jagannath. And then I said, okay, how is it possible? And Pujari said, yeah, Shiva wants Prasad to be offered first to Jagannath. Yes.
In Mayapur, we have a Shivalinga, nice, very beautiful Shivalinga, who protects the Dham. And every single day, the offering of Radha Madhav first goes to Shiva. And first gets offered to him, and then goes to the devotees. He gets everything first. So all the Mahaplates, they come off the altar, and they go to Shiva first. He has his own room, his own area. Upstairs in the Pujari room. In the Pujari room. Yeah. Yeah, he's a big Shivalinga, like that big. And he gets worshipped every day with all the Maha garlands. Everything gets to him first, and then, because he's protecting the Dham and he's protecting our devotion, right? He is the husband of Durga, and Durga is this material world. She's the external energy. She's Maya. So with his mercy and with Durga Mata's mercy, we can protect ourselves from Maya and focus on Krishna consciousness. So we worship the demigods, but we don't worship them for material desires. We worship them for Krishna bhakti. We worship them to protect us from their duty. What is the duty of Durga? To keep us in this material world until we want to go back to Krishna. So we worship her to please help us go back to Krishna, to exit, right? If you want to exit the prison of this material world, you need to be on good graces with the warden, right? So you worship the warden as a devotee and say, please, I want to go back to Krishna. I want to be a good citizen. I want to be a good jiva and worship Krishna eternally. So please show me your mercy and, let me go of this material world. Make sense? Any other questions or comments? We'll end here. Advaita Acharya ki. Shri Shri Nrsimhadev Bhagavan ki. Granthara Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki. Jainitai Gurupranandi. Mahaprasadam ki.
I'm really